Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. How was your 4th of July? Did you guys have a nice weekend? Man, that really did feel like a long weekend. That's nice when a holiday falls on a Friday like that. And yeah, that really felt nice. I remember waking up Saturday and being like, oh my God, today's only Saturday. And then Sunday felt like, I don't know, just felt like a nice long weekend. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Trying to see if I have any thoughts on 4th of July. You know, I will say this, maybe this is wrong, but I don't know. I feel like with everything going on in the country, there just wasn't that same energy. And obviously, you know, I think there's a significant portion of people that, you know, that weren't feeling very rah-rah America. I mean, obviously, anyone that is being arrested by ICE probably I shouldn't laugh when I say that. But I don't know, for some reason I didn't feel the energy the way I normally do. And I guess I'd have to even focus that just on social media, like just on Instagram and Facebook, because obviously, I mean, I was out and about a little bit, but you know, it's not like I traversed the entire country to get a beat on the energy of every city. But I don't know. I didn't see it. Like I didn't even see it on social media the way people normally do. I think, you know, 4th of July, even more than maybe Halloween and Thanksgiving. Although Thanksgiving's super nice. I really do enjoy Thanksgiving. And I love all the posts on Thanksgiving. Kind of the same thing with Christmas too. Birthdays win though. Birthdays definitely win on Facebook and especially Facebook. But anyway, I don't know. I just didn't see it. I'm curious if you guys did for some reason. Even my most American of American friends, I kind of there's a few people I was like, oh, let me see if they post anything. And they did not. And so, I don't know, whatever. I'm not trying to read anything into that, but I mean, I guess I will read a little bit into it. And that is that, man, it's just, we are in a state of disarray in this country, and it's like more divided than ever. You know, I think that it's funny. I think 2016 happened, right? Trump wins. You know, there's some whatever going on, but overall things kind of were relatively normal still. 2017, 2018, 2019. It was really all about mean tweets and things like that. Obviously then COVID happens, and then, you know, Biden wins the election, and you know, I think everybody thought, okay, he's going to be the president of peace and unity, because that is really what he ran on. And obviously that did not happen. You know, there was definitely division again. And then you've got this election, and I don't know, maybe I'm unique in this, but I genuinely thought, okay, you know what? Trump won, even though I didn't think he was going to win. If you remember, I actually thought Kamala would win, my bad. But then after he won, I was like, okay, you know, maybe people will just chill out, and we'll get back to life as normal. And that has not happened, like, at all. And obviously you could blame, as the Republicans do, you can blame the left. Although, again, they need to go to the Greg Stoker school of understanding the difference between leftists and liberals. Because even when Trump calls it the radical left, he really shouldn't be saying that. He should be saying the radical liberals. So thank you, Greg Stoker. Anyway, obviously the Republicans and conservatives blame that side, but honestly, you've got to blame the Trump administration as well. And they are contributing to this chaos. And case in point, what happened with the Jeffrey Epstein situation. So if you have not heard yet, which I'm sure you probably have, But basically, yesterday, the Department of Justice and FBI came out and said they have determined that after so much video and so much everything, and I'm going to play a couple things here in a second, but they have determined that, Jeffrey, that there is no Epstein list and that he was not trafficking kids sexually to anyone, and that there was no murder or foul play, and basically he just committed suicide, which is just insane. And for anyone that is a Trump worship syndrome person, if you are not like going berserk with that, with the same energy that you would have gone berserk had Kamala Harris been president right now and had her Department of Justice and her FBI said that same thing, then that is a you problem. And that is definitely a lack of authenticity. I mean, seriously, think about it. Think about if Kamala, God, man, her name is tough to remember how to pronounce properly. Kamala. So Kamala, if Kamala was president right now, imagine how berserk the MAGA world would have gone had she come to this conclusion that there is no Epstein list and that he did not do any child trafficking and that basically he just killed himself. I mean, they would be going berserk, like absolutely berserk. All right, let me play a couple things for you. This is Fox reporter Peter Doocy, and then I interjected so this is Fox reporter Peter Doocy from yesterday, and then I interjected the Pam Bondi quote from February. So it kind of goes back and forth. I think you'll get it.
So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Go
ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said,
it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I'm using the new Edits app from Meta to do some editing, and I totally forgot to make that clip funny for Instagram. I added a fart sound effect.
She had on her desk.
So for those of you listening through your AirPods, I do apologize for just farting in your ear twice. My bad on that. I completely forgot. Anyway, so that's one clip. Let's play the second one, and then we're going to talk about something else. All right, so this first clip is Kash Patel. So he's the FBI director. Kash Patel on this guy named Benny Johnson, who's just like another Trump fanboy. So this is 2023. This is Kash Patel on Benny Johnson in 2023.
Same thing with Epstein's list. It's like, what the hell are these Republicans doing?
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
All right, so now part two of this is literally just 3 months ago, and this is that lady or that gal, Elena Haba. She's like Trump's personal attorney. You've probably seen her over the past several years. She kind of got a lot of notoriety, basically for representing Trump on all of his civil lawsuits, like I don't even remember which one. There were so many. But anyway, her name is Elena Haba. She is now like the attorney general for the state of New Jersey. So this is her on Piers Morgan just like 2 months ago.
We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking. There were so many individuals that were hidden, kept secret, and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. And I really believe that now with Kash and Pam, there will be accountability.
I really believe now with Kash and Pam, there will be accountability. So obviously you just heard clips from Cash and Pam, and there was no accountability. Anyway, let me give you my net on this thing. I honestly do not think this is happening because they are worried about protecting the high profile people like, let's say, Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Prince Andrew, all of the people that are supposed to be on the Epstein list. I actually don't think it has anything to do with that. Well, I mean, I guess it has something to do with that, but I don't think that's why this is happening. I honestly think this is happening because, again, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, I'm pretty sure, and that is Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent, and Mossad works for Israel. And so, again, I mean, he was collecting data on behalf of the Israelis. And I don't think with everything going on in the world right now, especially right now, I just don't think the Trump administration, for whatever reasons, I mean, you can take this all the way back to J. Slay USA saying that the assassination attempt was their getting leverage on him. I mean, that seriously, all of that is incredibly plausible. It really is. And so I think that releasing the Epstein list, in addition to naming the names, you basically have to name the more important thing, and that is, who was he working for and who was he working on behalf of? And that answers obviously Israel. It just is. I mean, I'm not like making some shocking revelation right now. That's just the truth. The Epstein's, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, we've talked about him before. He was like the super Israeli spy. I mean, there's actually books written on him about being a super Israeli spy. And so obviously with Ghislaine being his daughter, it's not rocket science, and those dots all connect. And I think I've mentioned Whitney Webb before. Man, she's a real expert on this. I try to reach out to her. I have reached out to her to see if I can get her on the podcast. She actually is friends with James Corbett. So if I don't hear back from her, I always like to try to do things on my own before asking people for a favor. But if I don't hear back from her, I will ask James if he can make an introduction, because I'd love to bring Whitney on to talk about all this. You know what? I'm going to do that. I'll do that actually right after I record this podcast. What the heck? Because I think it would be great to get her perspective on it. But anyway, bottom line is there's so much data and evidence linking Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously Ghislaine to her father, Robert Maxwell. Robert was a Mossad agent. Mossad is, the CIA for Israel. So all of that stuff lines up. And so the reason I think what happened yesterday doesn't really have to do with, releasing powerful people's names, but it has to do with admitting who Jeffrey Epstein basically was working on behalf of. So, okay, there's that. It's a bad look. It's a really bad look for the administration. I think it should fracture a absolute ton of trust, obviously between the people that don't like the administration, but I think it should fracture a lot of trust between the Trump worship syndrome people who basically need to realize that, hey, call a spade on your team. You really need to do that. And I did see some of that yesterday, so I hope that continues. All right, let's shift topics. Man, this 9/11 is really heating up again, and there's so much content being created basically questioning what took place with 9/11. So here's a really good video, and for some reason the Pentagon is getting all the attention right now. So Building 7, which is the building that just sort of fell for nothing, and then the Pentagon are getting all the attention. So here is a video that some content creator put together that really, God, I wish you could see this because the visual is just so much better. But remember, the Pentagon I don't think it's like a one-story building, but, it's not that tall of a building. Obviously, it's not a skyscraper. I don't know. Is it 50 feet in the air? 30 feet in the air? Something along that line? Actually, why don't I find out? Hold on. All right, the Pentagon building is 77 feet, 3.5 inches. So basically, it's about a 5-story building when you think about it along those lines. So think about a 5-story building. I mean, if a plane were to run into it at basically, parallel with the building, or I should say perpendicular with the building, think about how low to the ground. I mean, that plane basically is going to need to be almost taxiing on the ground and then runs into the building. So listen to this.
How could anyone fly a 60-ton, 125-foot wide, 44-foot tall plane through this obstacle course?
The aircraft, before striking the Pentagon, reportedly executed a 270-degree downward spiral, and yet Hani Hanyour was known as a terrible pilot who could not safely fly even a small plane.
No seats, no luggage, no bodies. Nothing but bricks and limestone.
The official explanation is that the intense heat from the jet fuel vaporized the entire plane. Flight 77 had 2 Rolls-Royce engines made of steel and titanium alloy and weigh 6 tons each. It is scientifically impossible that 12 tons of steel and titanium was vaporized by jet fuel.
We're also told that the bodies were able to be identified either by their fingerprints or by the DNA. So what kind of fire can vaporize aluminum and tempered steel and yet leave human bodies intact?
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. And as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand.
Shortly after the strike, government agents picked up debris and carried it off. The entire lawn was covered with dirt and gravel, so that any remaining forensic evidence was literally covered up. The videos from security cameras, which would show what really hit the Pentagon, were immediately confiscated by agents of the FBI. And the Department of Justice has to this day refused to release them. If these videos would prove that the Pentagon was really hit by a 757, most of us would assume the government would release them.
So that clip, I think that included that CBS reporter, Jamie McIntyre. I think that was him who at one point is like, I was on the ground looking at the Pentagon and I see no semblance of a plane. But anyway, my point is, man, there's like these content creators that are basically clipping together unbelievable stuff. And by the way, I found that clip on TikTok. So I did not take the time to put that together. Somebody did that for me. And so instead, I just kind of reposted it. All right, moving on. Man, there was a terrible flooding in parts of Texas over the weekend. That was so bad. It looks like a flash flood at one of the rivers, and then it basically swept away kind of a campsite that like all these young kids were camping at. It reminds me of like Camp Hiawatha. I don't know. Why did that come in my brain? Camp Hiawatha. Anyway, I mean, just devastating though. It started out as 32 people were dead. I think the total is close to 80. Let me look. Yeah, it looks like the death toll has increased to more than 100 people have died after devastating floods hit central Texas. Camp Mystic, an all-girls summer camp that sits along the Guadalupe River, has confirmed that 27 campers and counselors died in weekend floods. 10 campers and 1 counselor are still unaccounted for. That is just heartbreaking. Oh my God, that is just absolutely heartbreaking, because I think all those campers, the kids were all, in their early teens. Let me see if I can see anything else. It says, these floods are unbelievable to me. It says the Guadalupe River swelled more than 26 feet in less than an hour. That is insane. Like, I don't understand how this stuff happens. I really don't. 26 feet in less than an hour, early Friday morning, sweeping low-lying homes, cars, and trees downstream and washing away much of Camp Mystic, the all-girls Christian summer camp. Anyway, so this is becoming another political issue. You've got the one side saying, oh, this was all Trump's fault because of various cuts. And then you've got the other side saying that this was not climate change. They induced the weather. They made it rain. They were cloud seeding the day before. Honestly, I haven't looked into it enough. I just am heartbroken for all of the families that are involved, but maybe I'll try to see if there's any good and relevant and credible information, and I'll play it later this week. All right, you know what? That's 20 minutes. Let's do an easy one today. Sorry about not bringing more to the plates today. Tomorrow, I am going to release a episode with this guy named Matt Kubler. It's actually a really interesting episode. He basically was a police officer that was hired by the family of a Navy SEAL that, quote unquote, supposedly committed suicide, but I don't think the guy committed suicide, and obviously neither does Matt. It's a very interesting episode, but it also opens up the can of worms on Navy SEALs and really also talks about the Osama bin Laden situation. And so I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a really interesting episode, and it kind of brings a whole different, element to the different interviews I've brought. By the way, here's my hit list of people I'm trying to get. Professor Jeffrey Sachs. I know that comes as no surprise. Professor John Mearsheimer, Whitney Webb, Congressman Kurt Weldon, Colonel Douglas McGregor, Professor Richard Wolff. I don't know too much about that guy, but somebody told me I should try to get him, and he actually should be easy to get. There's a guy named Ken O'Keefe. He's a former military guy. I actually got him. We're setting something up. He lives in Thailand, though, so it's been a little challenging with the time change. And then two guys named Scott Ritter, Scott Horton, this guy named John Shrek McPhee. He's been making the rounds lately. He's also another special forces Green Beret type. And then a guy named Bart Sibrel. You guys somebody might recognize him. He is the guy that has been on several podcasts, and he pretty much has debunked the moon landing. I really do want to do a moon landing episode. And if I can get Bart's kind of the guy that has pretty much said we faked the moon landing. And he's been on Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Patrick Bet-David. He's been on Alex Jones. He's been a ton of places, along with a ton of TV appearances. He also got punched in the face by Buzz Aldrin, which is pretty hilarious, actually. He confronted Buzz Aldrin, and then Buzz Aldrin punched him in the face. So that's kind of interesting. So let's see if I can get Bart. All right, that's it. Call a spade. Call your parents. Wednesday's episode will be with Matt. I will try to be back Thursday and Friday. That is the goal. I promise that is the goal. I do want to do an episode on APAC, finally talking about the American-Israeli, what's it stand for? Stands for the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee. Anyway, I just want to do that episode to just help you understand it. Obviously, that was brought up a lot in the Ted Cruz interview on Tucker Carlson. By the way, Tucker Carlson ended up interviewing the president of Iran. And so I didn't get a chance to listen to it over the weekend. He released it on 4th of July, which was goofy. He should not have released it that day. He should have released it actually yesterday or today. But anyway, I will try to listen to that and see if there's anything good there. That's about it, everybody. All right. Call a spade. Call your parents. Talk to you later.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.